If you guys enjoy what I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free and easy to do. Before we get started with today's video, I have an announcement to make. After years of telling other people's stories, I finally released one of my own. My novel Eternal Reign is available now in both ebook and paperback format for those of you who are like me and prefer to collect physical media. You can grab a copy right now on Amazon through the link in the description of this video. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. Out in Komra, the dwarves have been doing a lot of digging, and they stumbled across something quite interesting. The Warrior of Light, not wanting to miss out on anything that involves potential death and dismemberment, tries to take a peek. And while one of the guards is more than open to taking a little bribe, the chief is having none of that. So you're going to have to find another way into what the dwarves are calling the machine graveyard. While the dwarf has no intention of helping you out, he does ask you to deliver a message for him to two young dwarves named Anog and Konog, who keep trying to sneak into the dig site. The message is pretty short: stop sneaking in, or else. The twins laugh at the fact that you carried out the request for free, but after noticing how strong your neck looks from all of the nodding you do, they decide to put your gullibility to good use. The fact that they don't even make a secret out of the fact that they plan on using you for a patsy and you still go along with it proves that the Warrior of Light is an idiot. The kids are working on a project and they need an automaton core for it. It's being stored on a cliff with some other stuff and they send you to get it for them, which you do. The chief of the dig site overhears them trying to get you to do more for them, and he fusses at them for taking advantage of your kindness right before he asks you to do something for him. He needs a lantern from one of the other caves, a job that he could have easily sent someone else to do, but at least he does pay you for it. When you bring it to him, you see the twins trying to bribe their way into the machine graveyard, which the guard can't understand. The place is basically a junkyard, but the twins seem to think that there's something more there. You're also a bit curious to see what's so special about the place, but a string of thefts in the settlements forces you to look into something else first. All types of items have been going missing. At first it was small stuff, so no one paid attention, but once some of the valuable stuff that they had found on the dig site went missing, things changed. With you being an outsider and the thief obviously being a dwarf, since they're pretty much the only ones who really be around, you're the perfect person to track down the thief since you seem incapable of saying no anyway. With a little bit of digging, you find out that the thief is the same dirty gate guard who was trying to sell you a peek inside of the dig site. When you confront him, he runs off, and since he has the key to the site that the twins need, Anog and Konog join you on the chase. Of course, when you catch him and find out that he's a triplet and his brothers are thieves too, the twins run off, leaving you to deal with them. It's not like they're strong or anything, but it's the principle of the thing. Abandoning people to fight alone is shameful. The three dwarves have been taking turns guarding the gate to the dig site while the other two stole stuff to sell. After the thrashing you give them, they decide to turn themselves in, but as they leave, you see that they drop the key that the twins wanted during the fighting. When you let the chief know what really happened, he punishes the thieves by taking away their dinner, a punishment that they really seem to hate. But now the chief is worried about something else. He hasn't seen the twins in a while, which means they're up to something. With the guards gone, the twins were waiting by the dig site for you to bring them the key, and since your own desire for adventure outweighs your good sense, you hand it over and follow them inside, only to find another door. The twins have a key for this one too, and it's made up of a pile of bombs. You know, blowing things up in a tunnel could make the whole thing collapse, but since the mountain didn't fall down on top of the three of you, you all head deeper inside, only to find an unconscious woman with a force field around her body, protecting her from a relentless beating from a group of very poorly designed robots. The twins pull more bombs out of their bottomless pockets and blow the robots apart. All of the noise brings the dig site chief running. I mean, what did you actually think would happen? And he's not happy, but the twins ignore him and go to check on the girl. Now, for all of you Nier buffs, you may recognize the woman as 2B in a white dress, but she's not. She calls herself 2P, and while the twins want to know more, like why their bombs didn't blow her up too, she says all of that can wait. She needs to stop something she calls the machine life forms from doing something that she won't explain by reaching the center of the ruins that lie behind a massive door in the area. While she won't explain anything, she wants you to follow her. The twins are quick to do it, but the chief doesn't see this ending in any way but bad, so he asks you to watch out for them since you can't stop them from putting themselves in harm's way. The large door that 2P leads you to is locked as what she calls a last line of defense to keep people out, but the twins produce even more bombs that make short work of the lock, and since they found the place, they definitely want to see what's inside. Knowing that you can't stop them, and because you want to see what's inside yourself, you enter the place known as the Copied Factory. The place is not empty, and your entrance triggers an alarm that causes the machines who 2P claims are acting against their will to attack you. The factory is a technological marvel, way more advanced than pretty much anything else you've seen on the first, and 2P seems to know her way around quite well. Deeper inside, you face even bigger machines, some of which get hacked by an unknown source and are sent after 2P, who seems to be their true target. After taking down another machine that is literally the size of a construction site, 2P detects the energy signature of the hacker, who you should recognize if you played Nier Automata, as 9S. When he sees you with 2P, he lets you know that she's his target, but if you fight with her, he has no problem killing you both. The dwarf twins step back and let you all fight. And I gotta say that while Yoko Taro's method of storytelling is an acquired taste, no one can deny that he knows how to make a boss fight. After you bring down 9S's machines, he bursts out of the wreckage and attacks 2P. If you played Nier, then you know that the dress-wearing Yorha member is a far superior fighter than 9S, and it seems like that same holds true for 2P, who knocks him off of the side of the factory before collapsing from her own injuries. Since there could be others nearby, you all head out of the factory. On the way out, 2P passes out, and you all have to carry her the rest of the way. Konag can't believe that you're still standing. The power you display is outright insane coming from a mortal. Insane, and a little scary when you think about it. Even Konag has to admit that your skills are wasted with all of the silly errands that people have you running. Not like that's going to stop him from asking you to do more of those same errands later. He just wants you to know that you should be doing something else with your time. When 2P wakes back up, Anog bombards her with questions, mainly about 9S, like who was he, why was he trying to kill her, and how did he control the machines. She reveals that he's not a boy at all, but an android, just like her. The fact that she's not human is hard for any of you to comprehend, since it's hard enough to make the automatons that you see in the dwarf villages. There's no one alive, at least that the dwarves know of, that can make machines that can pass for humans and fight like gods. But android or not, it doesn't explain why 9S tried to kill you. 2P doesn't know why either, but she does know that there are other androids out there, and if they come looking for the ruins, they may be as hostile as 9S, which means they could wipe out the entire dwarf village. Konag is freaked out by this, but Anog reminds him that you have a strong android ally and an extremely violent assistant, meaning you, to protect them, not to mention a lot of bombs. However, 2P admits that she took too much damage in the last battle and probably won't last for much longer. She may not be able to fight, but she does tell you that deep in the ruins is a key that you need to find that she claims will let you stop the machines and the androids. She tries to tell you more, but in typical story fashion, she shuts down before she can tell you the important parts. Anog is excited to find the key that 2P mentioned. She almost seems obsessed with it, like she has something to prove to someone, and she already knows that you're going to come along. The prospect of making machines that are superior to people excites her. Maybe because she hasn't seen any movies like Terminator, The Matrix, iRobot, Ex Machina, Avengers Age of Ultron, you get the point. She even thinks that with a little bit of searching in the ruins, you may even find a way to fix 2P. Konag is a little less trusting of the vague super android. He doesn't know whether anything she said is true at all, especially since he has no idea what will happen if you find this key of hers and give it to her. They might make things worse. The twins argue, but they decide to leave the choice to you. Do you rush forward, putting your blind faith in 2P to see what adventures await? Or do you take Konag's path of caution and less potential risk, but a chance for less rewards? Either way, they both want to explore the factory. After searching around, you find a lot of different things along with a damaged pod. The thing springs to life, apparently not as damaged as it seemed, which is a little disappointing to Anog since she wanted to take it apart and see what made it tick. With a little more searching, you all find something even more interesting. 9S didn't die after 2P knocked him over the side of the factory. Somehow he managed to climb back up before passing out. Despite wanting to work with 2P, Anog decides that instead of destroying him like 2P would want, she'll bring 9S back with her, just in case Konag is right and you need a bit of insurance to deal with the other android. Back at the base with all the stuff they found, the twins get to work analyzing it all while they send you to distract the chief. He actually admits that the twins are probably the best dwarves to study the tech, and it'll be a good idea to let them work. See, you didn't even have to set his house on fire like the twins told you to. Something you'd agreed to do, I might add, and they call you a hero. After spending a bit of time playing servant to others around the world, you head back to the chief, who decides to send you to check in on the twins. They've been working on the stuff they found for a while, which is good until they end up blowing something else up, which will be bad since the annual carnival is coming up. In fact, since the twins seem to respect you a little bit, the chief wants you to remind them about the other work they need to do to prepare for the big event. The twins have actually had a bit of luck with their research. The pod said that one of the devices they found is linked to some weaponry, which means it's probably the key that 2P wanted. But once it said that, it shut down. They need a new power source for it, which Anog is eager to find so she can power up the key and take down her enemies. What enemies a teenage dwarf has are beyond me, and even her brother doesn't think she should turn it on so soon, at least not until after you find out what it does. Of course, they start to argue again, and when you get involved, they both turn on you. Take this as a bit of real world advice. Never get involved in a fight between siblings, because they'll both turn on you before going back to what they were arguing about. The twins work things out for themselves after agreeing that they need the weapons to protect their villages if the androids attack, so now it's time to find a power source. Anog believes you'll need some crystals, although she doesn't know how she'll make them work yet. She sends you to get one while she and her brother thinks up a way to use it. When you bring it to them, they try to run off and work on it, but the chief catches them and finally makes them get to work on their part of the festival, after a few persuading words from you, of course. The chief invites you to attend the festival because after all the hard work you did for them, you deserve a drink, or 12. Now I know why Giat drank so much. With their tiny bodies, you'd think they couldn't hold their liquor, but nope, dwarves drink. A lot. With everyone working together, it doesn't take long for the carnival to get underway. It's quite the event with food, drinks, games, drinks, and of course drinks. But none of that keeps the twins' attention for long. They've been sneaking off working on the key between preparing for the carnival and all their other duties, and they managed to get it powered up, but they have no idea how to use it. The only thing they figured out how to do is make it show symbols, and even with the pod translating, they still have no idea what they mean. The only person who might understand them is 2P, and she's shown no signs of powering back up on her own. In a maneuver they should have done days ago, Anog asked the pod to see if 2P can be fixed. A quick scan shows where she's damaged, and all it needs is a replacement part. It just so happens that there was a room in the factory filled with the dead bodies of androids that looked a lot like 2P, only dressed in black. As creepy as it is, the pod is able to get the parts for 2P from the corpses, and he's able to fix her. When she wakes up and gets her bearings, she gets the key and pushes a few buttons. The entire mountain starts to shake, and you all rush outside to see an entire area being bombed by androids and flight units. Dwarves are running and screaming as the entire mountain is reduced to rubble. A small army of black-clad androids step out, and 2P moves to confront them until all of their clothes turn white, and you realize that they are friends. And Konog was right. 2P was not your friend. She goes to kill Anog, but another android, this one dressed in black, rushes in to save her. Instead of continuing the fight, 2P hops into a flight suit of her own and leaves with her friends after telling you to enjoy watching the world end. Even though he hadn't fully trusted her, Konog hadn't thought 2P would try to kill them. But after just having one android turn on him, he's even less trusting of the new android, even though she did save his sister. She introduces herself as 2B, yes, the one from Nier Automata, and she says that her reason for being there is to destroy the androids in white. Together, you all chase 2P into the giant facility that was exposed when the androids destroyed the mountain, the puppet's bunker. However, 2B isn't really interested in working with you, and she takes off into the bunker alone in a flight suit, leaving you to fight your way past a lot of androids and their very, very large machines. The facility goes deep underground, and after reaching the deepest part, you find that 2B has already dealt with 2P. However, a weird group of machines pop out of her body and fuse together into a giant ball. The ball turns out to be some type of cocoon, and when it bursts open, the androids transform into a really big, creepy version of 2P, which at this point isn't even the weirdest thing the Warrior of Light has seen. Weird or not, a million or so sword slashes later, and you bring down the android. Back outside, Anog is having a hard time coping with just how wrong she was about 2P, but 2B says that all of the blame lies with her for letting her own fight spread so far. Not like we know where the fight even started, or what it was about, or if 2B is going to try to kill you all too, something that Konog points out. 2B can't really answer your question since all she remembers is that she was fighting the machines, took some damage, then ended up on your world. She can't even contact her superiors. The only reason she even found you all is because she had followed the sounds of the explosions. She does know that the machine life forms were made by aliens, and Yorha's job is to reclaim the planet from the invaders. She basically didn't tell you much of anything, but when you mentioned 9S, she asked to see him. Since things can't get much worse, Konog takes her to him. He hasn't been operational since your fight, but it turns out that he's 2B's partner, and she needs him if she's going to beat the machines, which means she wants your help waking him up. The twins have some experience with this since they helped 2P, but Anog is still shaken up after everything that happened. It doesn't get better when the other dwarves show up demanding retribution for the damage caused by the android attack. They blame the twins since they did kinda break into the dig site, wake up the androids, find the key, give it to 2P, and leave the machines there, which does kinda make it their fault. However, in the midst of Anog admitting that it was all her fault and taking whatever punishment the dwarves come up with, 2B comes out and takes all the blame. Seeing the android makes the dwarves run away, all except for the chief. He decides to speak to the other dwarves to make them be a little less hard on the kids. Konog goes to thank 2B for her help, but she doesn't care. She has other things to do, and she takes 9S and leaves, probably to find a way to revive him. When you and Konog leave to check on Anog, she's nowhere to be found. Konog goes everywhere looking for his sister, but she's nowhere to be found. And to make matters worse, the dwarves are not in a forgiving mood. The attack killed and severely injured a lot of their people. One dwarf's wife even lost her unborn child during the attack, and despite his attempts to apologize, Konog can't undo what he's done. He searches high and low for his sister, going to all of her usual spots, but she's not in any of them. Not knowing what else to do, he heads back into the puppet's bunker. You find him on the lowest floor, standing in front of something that wasn't there before. A giant white ball. He's seen it before, but he isn't really in the state of mind to explain it to you. Fortunately, the echo takes over and shows you a vision of Anog and Konog exploring the mountain long before the androids ever appeared. An earthquake hits, and large boulders fall toward Konog. Anog pushes him out of the way, saving him but knocking him unconscious. When he wakes up, he searches all over for his sister, finding pieces of her clothing, but he doesn't find her. He does find the same large white orb that you found him standing in front of. He calls out for his sister, and weird symbols appear on the ball before a blinding light flashes and a maskless dwarf girl appears. She speaks in the same strange language that the orb did, but after scanning Konog, she adopts the personality of his sister, meaning that the girl who's been hanging around with Konog all of this time may not have been his sister at all, but a creation of this strange device. So the question is, whatever happened to the real Anog, and where did this strange orb come from? It's been a while since Anog disappeared after the incident in the puppet's bunker, and despite what the dig site chief thought, she hasn't come back, and the dwarves still haven't forgiven Konog. He had expected Konog to run off after his sister, but instead the young dwarf has just stayed in the tunnels alone. To add to all of the chaos, the chief has to get his men back organized and working, so he doesn't have time to look in on Konog much, so he sends you to do it. And since he really has nobody else, you agree to check on the poor kid. You find him unconscious on the tunnel floor with a really bad fever. He tries to shrug it off so he can go look for his sister, but you make him stay put while you go tell the chief. The chief panics and rushes off to get some medicine from his wife, but, as you should have guessed, Konog is gone when the two of you get back. You check around the area, and when you don't find him, you head back to the last place you had found him, inside of the bunker. This time the chief comes with you, and after a run that is just designed to test your patience, you find Konog unconscious next to the giant white orb. It glows white, and dozens of 2Ps step out of it. You get ready to fight them, when all of a sudden 2B and 9S run in with Anog. Even though you need some answers, Anog tells you that there's no time and you have to destroy the orb immediately. Before any of you have a chance to attack it, the androids all start to make a weird noise before they vanish along with the orb. The bunker starts to shake violently, and you all rush outside just in time to see a tower appear out of nowhere, stretching into the sky for miles. Anog curses about the fact that you were all too late, and although you still have no idea what's going on, she claims that she can't waste time explaining. You all have to destroy the sphere, or what 2P has started will destroy the whole world. Since Anog helped revive 9S, the two androids are going to help you take down the machines. Anog asks the chief to get the unconscious Konog out of there while the four of you head into the tower. The tower is huge and extremely unsettling, with the machine spouting things that 9S calls nonsense over the intercom. The doors are locked, and 9S hacks into them, allowing you to fight the defenses in cyberspace. The first few monsters should be recognizable to those of you who played the original Nier, and if you haven't, you'll get the chance when Nier Replicant comes out in a few weeks. The creepiest defense is the Red Girl from Nier Automata. I've come to realize that when you fight something with the name Red in the title, the fight's gonna be brutal. Or do I need to remind you all about the Red Chocobo in Bajra? After you deal with her, you come across an elevator that will take you all the way to the top of the tower, with you fighting two giant robots on the way because nothing could possibly be easy. At the top of the tower, you see your creepy red girl friend again, doing something with the white light that is pushing the orb into the sky, forming a hole in midair. She multiplies herself and attacks you all to keep you from interfering. 9S, 2B, and the Warrior of Light try to stop her, but she floats off into the sky, merging with the orb and expanding the hole into the unknown. The orb floats back down and splits in half, revealing a creepy giant girl that reminds me of the Cloud of Darkness. She claims that you will be the first to see the new world, then she attacks. As you fight, she talks of how long they've waited to throw open the gates before she stuns you all and teleports into the rift that was growing larger and larger in the sky. When she merges with it, barely audible voices come from the other side before she floats back down in her new form that I'm going to guess is a fusion of 2P and Zero from Drakengard 3. Now, I may be reading too deeply into this, but this is a Yoko Taro creation, so I might not be going deep enough. The new creature's name is Her Inflorescence. Now, inflorescence is the flower head of a plant. Since the boss is specifically called Her Inflorescence, I think it's meant to mean her flower. Zero had a flower growing out of her eye that had merged with her at the time of her death, turning her into an intoner, which is basically a really powerful god. The flower had a mind of its own, and sensing that it wasn't exactly a noble being, Zero tried to get rid of it. First she tried to dig it out of her body, and when that didn't work, she tried to kill herself. All that did was cause the flower to make 5 more intoners, who all had a bit of Zero's power. They went off to do a lot of bad things, so Zero set out to kill them all. The story is way more complicated than that, but explaining it in detail would literally take hours. And who knows, I might cover it one day because the story of Drakengard and Nier and how it all interconnects is pretty cool, even though it is a little complicated. However, that is something to worry about on another day. For now, you just have to beat the creature no matter what it is. You bring her down, but that doesn't close the rift. In fact, it keeps getting bigger. 2B and 9S try to close it, but they don't seem to be having any luck. So Anog steps forward. She hands you a letter to give to Konog and tells the androids that she'll help them close it from the other side. She tells you to take care of her brother before she digitizes and teleports into the rift in the same way the red girl had, proving that she wasn't the real Anog but a product of the orb. When she enters the rift, it seals with a loud explosion that knocks you all unconscious. You wake up to see both 2B and 9S are dead, but the pod has recorded a message that they left. 2B had discovered that 2P and her allies, the tower and the giant girl you fought, all came from the orb, just like they did. It was a portal between worlds, and its main purpose is to destroy the first. The problem was, as long as the 2 androids remained on the first, the link between the worlds could never be severed, so they had to shut down in order for the portal to close. But they wanted to leave a record of all the things they did on the first, so they uploaded their memories to the pod so it could tell you. Once the message finished playing, 2B, 9S, and the pod vanish. Then the tower itself begins to fade, forcing you to flee for your life. I don't care how fast you run, that tower was taller than heaven on high. There's no way you made it out of there in time. The Warrior of Light should be dead. When you get back to the chief and tell him what happened, he's heartbroken to hear about Anog, even though he knew things wouldn't end well. He thinks it'll be better if you tell Konog because he doesn't think he can do it. When the boy hears about his sister, he doesn't take it well either. He reads her letter, but what she tells him about her being a construct and seeing other worlds doesn't calm him down. There's more in the letter that we don't know about, but whatever it is does little to make him feel better. He feels abandoned, and he asks you to leave him alone a bit so he can think. He had found the chief's wife's watch in some rubble and fixed it for her, and he wants you to bring it to them because it was important to the woman. He would bring it himself, but he doesn't really feel like dealing with people right now. The chief is happy to get his wife's watch back, but he immediately gets suspicious about the fact that Konog didn't deliver it himself, so he rushes back to the tunnels only to find that Konog has left. He blames himself and the people of the village for the way they treated the twins, and he sets out to rebuild the village and make the people more receptive to new ideas, with a little help from you, of course. Most of the dwarves still want blood for what happened with the machines, despite the fact that you dealt with the threat. Talking to them helps a little bit, and with time they may come around and start working together, and you being you agree to stick around and help with the rebuilding process whenever they need. Before you head out, a device is delivered to the village for you from Komra. Using the portable archive the twins gave you a long time ago lets you read it, and you find out that Komra is out trying to learn the secrets of those white orbs, because just because you dealt with one doesn't mean there aren't any more. In Mordona, you run into an oddly dressed but strangely familiar man who lets you know about a project going on in the area. Being a curious or maybe just a nosy individual, you go to see what it's all about. Rambros is surprised to see you since the only people who were supposed to know about the project were members of the Sons of St. Koinok, but since you're there, he decides to put you to work. However, the excavation that they're working on is dangerous, so if things go wrong, you might die. Of course, that doesn't do anything but make you excited, and the sight of your friend Sid makes you even more so. Rambros is surprised to hear that you two know each other, but Sid is more than happy to have you along, even though you still have no idea what you signed up for. The Warrior of Light is the poster child for leaping before you look, so Sid breaks things down for you since you like to sign contracts before you actually read them. The group known as the Sons of St. Koinok are working on finding the secrets of the ancient Allegan Empire, and their current job is on track to reveal more about the ancient civilization than ever before. And while you're no scientist, you have dealt with a lot of ancient Allegan tech, including the Ultima weapon. Garleans hadn't built it, Nero had simply turned it on, so you have a more hands-on experience with Allegan tech than most, even if your experience lies solely in breaking it. In Mordona, there's a large Allegan building called the Crystal Tower, and after seeing the destructive power of Allegan relics like the Ultima weapon and the artificial moon Dalamud, it seems like a good idea to study the tower and learn what it does before the thing falls into the wrong hands. That's why Sid contacted the Sons of St. Koinok to set up an expedition into the tower. The building had been buried for thousands of years, but it was unearthed during the calamity. It was only a matter of time before someone went to see what it was, but the place's defenses are still active, and anything trying to pass through the barriers gets blown up. The barriers are produced by 8 statues, and you won't be able to explore the tower without dealing with them, and you can't fly over it because anything that tries is shot out of the sky. Rambros admits that his people are not built to handle dangerous situations, so when they do get access to the tower, they'll need an adventurer to do all of the heavy lifting. And of course, you're eager to do it. There are a lot of things that need to be done, so I'm pretty sure you've already guessed what's coming next. Fetch quests, and a lot of them. The defenses of the tower each use one of the 4 primary elements: earth, fire, wind, and water. So Sid believes that the crystals matching the particular element of the force fields could reflect the energy of the barriers and cause them to overload. You will need the most pure crystals of each element as possible, just like the ones the beast tribes use to summon their primals. So now you get to rob the beast tribes, and the Eorzeans wonder why the different tribes hate them so much and keep summoning their gods to fight you. Being the good little peon that you are, you travel around Eorzea, liberating various members of the different tribes of both their property and their lives. What a great hero you are, murdering people for the sake of science. After gathering all of the crystals, it's on to the next step. As they are, the crystals are useless. They need to be cut and polished before they can work, and that process takes more, very specific materials that you have to fetch. You got 4 crystals of different elements. Now you have to do the same for ether sand, required to make them useful. This isn't something you can find easily due to how rare the ether sand is, so Rambros has put in an order for some at the Goldsmiths Guild in Ul'dah. That way, whenever some does arrive, he'll already have claimed it. He sends you to see if they manage to get any, and he gives you the money to pay for it, but he seems to forget that all the teleporting around you've been doing costs money too. Fortunately for me, I'm a crafter, so Gil isn't really a problem, but he didn't know that. Lucky for you, you get to the Goldsmiths Guild shortly after a shipment of fire-aspected ether sand arrives. However, Biggs is there trying to convince the guild to sell him the sand for whatever project he's working on. Biggs wasn't expecting to see you there, and he's even more shocked to find out that you're working with his boss. He knew Sid was working on something dealing with Allegan relics, but he hadn't thought to ask what since he and Wedge were so busy working on a new airship. They've built a prototype, but it needs all 4 different types of ether sand to run. So he's after the same thing that you are, but since the Sons of St. Koinok reserved the sand, you got dibs. Since you're taking what he needs, Biggs wants you to let him join in on your assignment. And to show that he's not useless, he lets you know where to start looking for another bit of sand. There's a peddler in northern Thanalan who is said to deal in earth-aspected ether sand, and Wedge is in the process of hunting him down. Wedge hired an adventurer to be his bodyguard and headed out to Camp Blue Fog, so you head there to find him. You find his bodyguard at the camp, but no Wedge. She's more than happy to tell you the story, although she doesn't seem really happy at all. She and Wedge were looking for the peddler of ether sand just like Biggs told you, but when they found the guy, he'd been robbed by bandits. She and Wedge snuck into the bandits' camp to try to get the sand back. To make a long story short, they sucked at stealth, were seen, and had to run. She and Wedge were separated and she hasn't seen him since. He may still be in the Mithril mine, but she thinks that it's more than likely he's dead by now. Not wanting to abandon your friend, you head to the mine where the bandits are stationed, and you find him cowering in a corner trying to psych himself up to make an escape. When he sees you, he starts blabbering on and on about why he's there and such, stuff that, if you didn't already know, it should have been discussed at a different time. I never understand why people start holding casual conversations in the heart of enemy territory, like the world's just gonna pause until you remember that you need to get out of danger. Whatever. On the plus side, Wedge did find the ether sand, but he dropped it while he was running for his life. Instead of letting him wander around the bandit camp, you track down the earth-aspected ether sand and return to Wedge, only for him to decide to join you and Sid at the Crystal Tower too. You bring the 2 bits of sand back to Rambros, and Sid gets back to work on the crystals, although he can't believe that you actually got your hands on any of the sand, let alone 2 of the 4 you needed. Hearing that you got help from Biggs and Wedge is the last thing he expected. As for the wind and water ether sand that you still need, Rambros has made some arrangement that he doesn't seem happy about. He had asked a Charlian friend of his to go to Gridania and get what he needed, but the man just disappeared. Which isn't all that odd for him, but he still doesn't know if something happened to him or not. But there's no time to search for him either. Instead, Rambros sends you to Gridania to see if the Master of the Markets knows where you can buy the remaining materials. He hasn't seen any ether sand on the market board in years, but he knows where you could mine for the water sand. However, it's so dangerous that he wouldn't recommend it. As if that matters to you. The spot is an Earth's gift, but the place is inhabited by a very large hog that murders any and everyone that goes there. When you get to the place, you find the giant hog is already dead, and a voice taunts you for being so slow. The mysterious man has taken the ether sand that you needed, but he decides to make a race out of getting the wind sand. A group of Ixal in the Northern Shroud have some that they keep for purifying their crystals. Your mysterious friend tells you to hurry there before he takes what you want, and you rush off to the Ixali logging grounds. You deal with some Ixali who are not happy that you're robbing them, and you take the wind ether sand. Your mysterious watcher was so excited by your performance that he admits that he didn't even try to get the sand himself, and since he enjoyed seeing you in battle so much, he decides to leave the water ether sand for you as payment for entertaining him. The guy is clearly a bit touched in the head. Just because he claims the whole point of his test was to document the accomplishments and skills of a mighty adventurer doesn't mean he's not crazy. Regardless, you have everything Sid needs to break the barrier around the Crystal Tower, so you head back to Mordona with your prize. Sid works his magic and gets his devices ready shortly before Biggs and Wedge arrive to lend a hand. Another person shows up not long after, and although this is your first time seeing him, you recognize his voice. The man who challenged you to the race for the ether sand turns out to be a Mikode named Grahatia. He also happens to be the one who Rambros had sent to find the sand in the first place, so basically he just pawned off his job onto you. He's been assigned to Rambros' project as an observer, and despite his weirdness, he's not a bad guy. After naming your ragtag group of friends Noah after a famous Allegan Archmage, you set off to see if Sid's devices are gonna work or kill you. Sid, not wanting to risk anyone else's life to see if his projects work, is the first to test it. It works quite well, destroying the first barrier and prompting the rest of you to move forward. With the outer defenses down, Sid suggests that you and a few other adventurers go into the tower first, because if the defenses on the outside were that strong, then there's no telling what's waiting inside. Graha is not happy about it since it makes it difficult to record your actions if he's outside while you're smashing things, but his knowledge of ancient civilizations will be useful in helping Sid study the broken towers to see how they functioned. He admits that Sid's right, but before you set off, he lets you know that the maze surrounding the base of the tower is called the Labyrinth of the Ancients, and all you should do is take down any hostile things inside before you call him and Sid so they can figure out how to move into the tower proper. The time has come for you to finally begin your journey into the Crystal Tower. Inside, you face all manners of creatures, from void scent to dragons, but you and your friends overcome it all until you come face to face with a living Allagan, General Phlegethon. In ancient times, he led a host of revolutions against the Allagan Empire, and he was seen as a hero by the common people, but he was eventually captured by the Empire and was experimented on, turning him into a mindless slave. After ending the general, Sid, Graha, Biggs, and Wedge all show up to admire both your handiwork and the impressive structure. Based off of the findings of the students of Baldesion, the Crystal Tower was built to absorb the energy of the sun like a giant solar panel. Graha even knew who Phlegethon was, something he figured out just from hearing what kind of weapon the giant man used. Allagan history is his favorite subject, and one of the things he read said that the Crystal Tower is guarded by heroes of the old world who were resurrected and augmented by Allagan technology, something he could have told you before you went inside. But you didn't die, and you have cleared a path to the tower, so you all head back to the camp to plan what you're going to do next. And I mean that in the literal sense, because we all know that you're going to be doing all of the heavy lifting. Back at the camp, after giving a play-by-play of your adventure in the Labyrinth to Rambros, he takes what you told him and combines it with what Graha discovered to come up with a full analysis of what's been accomplished so far. The expedition is going well considering the fact that it just started. The encounter with the Allagan general inside the labyrinth along with the other defenses is a little bit disturbing, however, and it proves Sid's earlier fears, that the calamity didn't simply reveal the Crystal Tower, it woke it up. The tower's secrets are far too dangerous to share with the world. Short of blowing the place up, the only way to make sure it doesn't end up in the wrong hands is to find a way to turn it back off, this time for good. But if you want to turn it off, you have to figure out how it works, which means you'll have to go into the tower itself, and you know that'll be dangerous, probably even more dangerous than the labyrinth. With that in mind, Rambros decides to study the tower's defenses before sending you inside, and of course Sid and his crew are up for the challenge. While they work, Graha decides to go and train his body so he'll be strong enough to join you in the battle this time, but Rambros stops him and sends him to help Sid. He pouts like a baby, but he will do as he's asked. So everyone heads off to do what they need to prepare for your trip into the circus tower. While you're all busy, the man who told you about the expedition in the first place goes to survey the wreckage of the tower's external barrier. He's quite impressed with Sid's handiwork, and the path you cleared into the tower allows him to detect a power at the top, something that's even more powerful than the ultimate weapon. And he should know, since he turns out to be the Garlean scientist who had worked under Gaius on the ultimate weapon project, Nero. When you make it back to the camp, Rambros lets you know that they haven't made much progress with the tower. They found a lot of new things in the labyrinth, but they still haven't been able to get to the tower. The entrance to Circus Tower is guarded by very advanced technology that they haven't been able to get through, and until they figure out how to get inside, there's not much for you to do. As luck would have it, two oddly dressed individuals called Unai and Doga arrive at the camp before you leave. They say that they were sent by the students of Baldesion to help, but Rambros hadn't gotten any messages saying they were coming, and with the incident at the Isle of Val, mainly the explosion of magic that moved the island somewhere else entirely, the students of Baldesion have more important things to worry about. And those worries can be summed up in one word: Eureka. For those of you who don't know about it, you will. But that is a story for another day. Doga assumes that the incident is the reason why the message didn't reach Rambros, but he promises that they are there to help. Graha's eye, the red one, begins to ache, and although he dismisses it as nothing, Unai notices that his eye is the same as theirs. The red eyes are a trait unique to Allagan royalty, and it has been passed down in Graha's family for generations, which explains his fascination with the Allagans. He's a descendant of their race. Only one child of every generation is born with the Allagan eye, and his search for knowledge has been all about finding out what it means and why he only has one. So he's more than eager to hear anything that the newcomers have to say. Sadly, they don't know much other than the fact that those born with those eyes are bound to the fate of Alec, which is why G'raha has been drawn to the ancient empire, and it's the reason why they are there. Since it can't hurt to let them help, Rambros welcomes them to the group and takes you all to see what you can learn about the entrance to Circus Tower. Sid's waiting by a massive door, and after the newcomers are introduced, he breaks down what's going on. The large door leads to the Circus Tower, but it's sealed and there's no way to break through. He's used everything from a pickaxe to a cannon, and nothing's even left a mark on it. The only hint they have on how to open the door is a device on the door with a man and woman carved into it. But for all they know, the device could be decoration or just a fancy doorbell. The two newcomers simply walk up to the door, lift their hands, and poof, it opens. Clearly they are more than they claim, something you should have picked up on from their full set of elegant gear, but before they can explain, Nero shows up. Sid's shocked that the man's still alive after the battle at the Praetorium, and Nero doesn't blame him for being uneasy about him being there, since he did try to kill you with a really big hammer last time he saw you. But he's no longer welcome in Garlemald. After his failure with the Ultima weapon, the 14th Legion is defunct, and if any of them go home, they'll probably be executed. Since Nero likes being alive, he's been wandering around Eorzea. He ended up hearing about what Sid was working on, and decided to come and join him. As a sign of his willingness to work with you, he reveals what he knows about Unai Ndoga. The Crystal Tower was a symbol of ancient Allegan power, and access was only given to royalty, and a few others. From what Nero learned, only people with royal blood can open the door. The Emperor and his heirs were literally living keys. Unai and Ndoga are clones of those heirs. They didn't want to lie to you, but without proof, if they had come out and said what they were, you probably would have thought they were crazy. They have a lot more to tell you, so you all head back out away from the tower to talk, and Nero goes to follow you, although Sid's not happy about it even after the man gives him an Allegan tombstone filled with information that the 14th Legion had gathered about the ancient empire. Once everyone is gathered, Unai and Ndoga tell you everything, and to understand it all requires a bit of a history lesson. The Allegan Empire had reached its peak long before they were made. At that time, the Crystal Tower stood, absorbing the energy of the sun and powering the entirety of the empire. But the ease of life that the tower brought caused the empire to grow stagnant. Without a strong leader, the empire became a shadow of its former self. And wanting to restore its nation, a scientist named Amon made it his mission to return Allag to his former glory. And he believed that only one man could do it, so he worked to resurrect the founder of the empire, Emperor Zand. As part of the experiment, Amon made clones of the Emperor's descendants. The Unai and Ndoga standing before you are a part of that very experiment. Historical texts talked about the reign of two emperors named Zand, and everyone believed that the second was someone named after the first, but no one had ever guessed that they were both the same man. But Amon succeeded in resurrecting Zand, and he did restore the empire, but he wanted more. In his first life, Zand had wanted to bring the entire world under Allegan rule. He failed the first time, but since he was given a second chance, he has no intention of failing again. Knowing that he needed more power to achieve his goal, Zand sought the power of darkness. He transformed the Crystal Tower into a research facility to help him study and harness this new power. Sid remarks that it's fortunate that all of this happened so long ago that it's no longer a threat, but Ndoga shatters your hopes. Emperor Zand is still alive and well inside of Circus Tower, and he's not happy that his empire fell. Drawing on the power of darkness takes a lot of energy, too much even for the Crystal Tower. To increase its power, the moon Dalamud was made and launched into the sky to draw in the sun's energy and channel it into the tower. Unfortunately, they miscalculated, and a surge of energy caused an earthquake that caused the calamity that brought about the Fourth Umbral Era and destroyed the Allegan Empire. But as the Crystal Tower sank into the earth, Amon used magic to stop time from flowing inside the tower's walls. Everyone inside, the Emperor included, were all put to sleep, and they stayed that way until Dalamud was messed with during the Meteor Project, which caused the tower to reappear, and Zand to awaken. His first act was to summon the darkness that he hungered for, and like so many others, he was corrupted by it. And even though his empire is long dead, he still plans on conquering the whole world. That is why Unai and Ndoga exist, to fulfill the wishes of the original Unai and Ndoga who they were cloned from, and kill Zand before he destroys the world. When they woke in the tower, they realized that they couldn't beat Zand on their own, so they went out to hunt for allies. and because they saw you fight your way through the Labyrinth, they know that you can help them beat the Emperor. Of course, saving the world once again falls on your shoulders. Only this time, you get to face off against the man who founded the greatest empire in history, and his soldiers, including a scientist who not only figured out how to revive the dead, but managed to stop time itself. Inside of the tower, you face off against the scientist Amon's experiments, like Scylla, a former Allegan archmage who Amon tricked into undergoing one of his experiments. He had told her that she would end up with eternal life when he was done with her, but when she woke from the procedure, he had replaced her head with a pack of wild dogs. That should not be funny, but it kind of is. I have a messed up sense of humor. There are also more clones of Unai and Doga that you have to contend with, as well as Glacia Labolas, a loyal commander of the Imperial Honor Guard who Amon successfully granted eternal life to, until you poke him with a lot of sharp things to end all of his living. You then have the pleasure of ending Amon himself, before coming face to face with Zand. After taking down the Emperor, Unai and Doga decide how they will seal off the tower for good, while Nero, obviously, plans some mischief of his own. They can either separate the tower from the outside world, or block its ability to produce energy, turning it into nothing more than a shiny building. She leaves it up to you to decide, but first she and Doga have to deal with the rift that opened above the throne after Zand fell. The rift is a portal into the void, the world of darkness as the Allegans called it. You may know it better as the 13th Shard, the one that the Ascians accidentally destroyed when they first began their attempts at rejoining all the shards together. And the darkness Zand was trying to channel was, of course, an army of Voidsent. Zand had made a magical pact with the Voidsent leader. In exchange for them working for him, he would open a void gate that would give them free access to the source, your world. Meaning, in short, Voidsent would no longer have to make pacts with mages or get summoned into lesser bodies to get here. They would be able to come and go as they pleased. Having fought countless Voidsent, you should know that having an entire planet full of them coming to visit would not be a good idea. Even though Zand is dead, the contract he made has not been broken. But since the clones share his bloodline, they can end the deal. They reach out to seal the rift, and while they work, Nero's device begins to go haywire as something more powerful than anything he's ever seen approaches. From within the rift, a voice says that the covenant will not be broken so easily before an army of clones appear, sparking a vision from the echo. That really needs to stop happening when fighting's about to start. You see Zand sitting on his throne in front of a small group of clones, talking about how Mera City has been taken, and it won't be long before everything is under Allegan rule. But he still sees visions of his death and the void he floated in when his life came to an end. And despite all of his power, he's scared to die again, knowing that all that he's accomplished will mean nothing once he's gone. It's at that moment that he decides to destroy everything. If everything ends in nothing anyway, he'll make sure that he doesn't experience it alone. To bring about the end, he tells his people to draw more power into the tower so he can allow the cloud of darkness full access to the world so she can consume it all. You bounce out of the vision in the middle of a full-scale battle. Sid and the others are holding off the clones, but more and more keep coming. All of them are being controlled by a massively powerful Voidsent that reaches out of the rift and snatches Unai and Doga. Nero, wanting to master the power of darkness himself and needing the clones to do it, rushes forward to save them, only to be captured and pulled into the rift with them. From within the rift, the cloud of darkness speaks, letting you know that she intends to consume the light and return your world to the void before the rift closes and the clones collapse. Not knowing what else to do, you all leave the tower to see if Rambros has any ideas. He's shocked to hear about all that happened, but he's positive that the rift that opened was a void gate. Geniuses really have a knack for stating the obvious. There are a lot of different types of Voidsent, and the more powerful the creature, the larger the gate has to be for them to come through. To let something as powerful as the cloud of darkness through will require a massive gate unlike any that had ever been made before. To put things into perspective the best way I can, the cloud of darkness is probably the equivalent of Eden, but where Eden emitted a flood of light on the first, the cloud of darkness obviously emitted a flood of darkness. I am going to have to do some research to find out just why the Voidsent are so much more intelligent than the Sin Eaters. I mean, they're a stupid Voidsent, like those floating eyeballs, for instance. But between Diabolos, Ferdiad, Scathah, Lilith, and the Cloud of Darkness, Voidsent are clearly more evolved than their light ether counterparts. And it could be because the Sin Eaters have only existed for about 100 years, while if time sped up on the 13th Shard the same way it did on the first, there's no telling how many thousands of years have passed since the first Voidsent came about. But that's just a theory. In any case, Rambros doesn't know how to help your friends. There are no documented cases of people entering the void. It's possible that your friends died the minute they were pulled through the rift. Regardless, G'raha refuses to give up on saving Unai and Doga, not only because he feels connected to them because of his eye, but if you don't save them, there will be no way to break the bargain Zan made with the Cloud. Sid agrees, mainly because if you leave Nero where he is, there's no telling what kind of trouble he could cause. Honestly, even though he would never admit it, he still considers Nero a friend. So they all get to work on figuring out how to get your friends back. With so many geniuses working on the problem, you know it won't take long for them to solve it. Sadly, their research into how to save your friends reveals something else. The Crystal Tower is still absorbing energy, and without Unai and Doga, there's no way to stop that either. From what Nero's tombstone told them, in ancient times, Allegan royalty had a method of giving their blood to others. That was the only reason Amon and the others could even control the tower, since they weren't royalty. You don't have that ability, and since the tower has built up so much energy, blowing it up will cause an immeasurable amount of damage to the world, maybe even worse than the last calamity. G'raha does have an idea. Since the energy is being absorbed to open a void gate anyway, you can use the energy to open a gate of your own that will let you pass into the world of darkness. Sid is already working on the project, and in true Sid fashion, he's already done. With time slipping away, you all head back to the tower. Sid has his team power up his machine, and a portal into the world of darkness opens. However, it's not stable, and it won't be open for long. Sid decides to stay behind to keep the gate open for as long as he can while you go to rescue your friends. But this time, G'raha decides to come with you. He's felt himself changing since he met the clones. Something's been bothering him, something that he can't remember, and he feels that it's forcing him to see all of this through with his own eyes. So it's into the world of darkness you both go. Void scent litter every corner of the darkness-covered world, forcing you to do battle with everything from clones of Zan himself to a massive 5-headed dragon that Amon had built to face off against the dragon legions of Mericidia. Seems like your friends weren't the only things that the Cloud of Darkness drew into the void. Finally, you come face to face with the Cloud of Darkness herself, and you manage to push her back long enough for Nero to show up, carrying an unconscious Unai with Doga by his side. The wounds he had taken had allowed the darkness of the void to disrupt the ether of his body, making him look like a purple glow stick. The contract that Zan made with the Cloud protects Unai and Doga from suffering the same fate. The Cloud can't kill them herself, which is why she brought them there so other Void Scent can do the job. They both would have been long dead had Nero not protected them, something he makes sure to remind you that he only did for his own reasons. Unai wakes up, and seeing you there, she believes that they still have a chance to complete the mission and break the contract linking the Cloud to your world. Of course, the Cloud is having none of that, and she lashes out. You couldn't possibly hope to kill her in her world, but she's struggling to hold her form together after your battle, which makes the clone think this is their best chance to break the covenant. But you all have to leave now, because once that link is severed, the bridge linking the world of darkness to the Crystal Tower will vanish. G'raha pleads with the clones to come with you because they are the only ones who can shut down the tower, and while he's talking, the Cloud shoots him, only to discover that she can't hurt him either. The reason he has the Allegan eye is because he is a direct descendant of not just any Allegan bloodline, but Zan's very own, which means he can use the Crystal Tower too. The clones believe that in an attempt to keep the Allegan bloodline alive, someone must have implanted their gifts into G'raha's ancestors. The Crystal Tower won't recognize him as Allegan because his blood is so diluted, but the clones share their own power with him, so he will have full access to the tower. When the transfer is complete, both of G'raha's eyes turn red, allowing his Allegan nature to be fully revealed. Not wanting to die, you, Nero, and G'raha sprint away, while Unai and Doga stay behind to finish their mission. The gate is closing as you all race across the bridge, but the corruption in Nero's body makes it hard for him to keep up. He tells you to leave him, and after hearing a voice saying that the Crystal Tower needs to once again become a beacon of hope for mankind, you leave Nero behind. The clones manage to break the covenant, which also frees Nero from the corruption, and although the gate is nearly closed when he reaches it, Sid reaches through and pulls Nero out in the nick of time. Everyone's happy to see that you made it back, but they're sad to hear about the fate of the clones. Fortunately, G'raha can seal the tower, although he needs a moment to rest first. He decides to hang back in the tower for a moment while you all head back to camp. Back at the camp, while you're all discussing the series of events you just went through, a member of the Sons of St. Cornoc come running up, screaming about how G'raha ordered them all out of the tower. He's acting strange, so you all rush back to see what's gotten into him. He stops you as you get closer, warning you that the door to the tower has already started to close, and he's staying inside, as he finally understands his purpose. After Zan caused the calamity, survivors stood in the ruins looking for the tower, but it was gone. However, they prayed that it would return to them since it had become a beacon of hope for their people. The last member of the royal line who had survived the destruction, Princess Selena, heard their cries, so she used her resources to implant her blood and memories into G'raha Tia's ancestor, so that one day, one of them could return the tower to its former glory. Unai and Doga giving him their blood also gave him the memories of his ancestor, and he plans on fulfilling their dream of making the tower a beacon of hope to the world as it was in ancient times. But as the world is now, the tower's powers are far too advanced, and people trying to use it without having the knowledge of the most basic Allagan tech could be disastrous. But if they wait for the world to catch up, then the Allagan bloodline may be long dead and the tower would be useless, which is why G'raha decided to stay inside of the tower. Knowing what he knows now, he can put the tower to sleep like Amon did, and he will remain inside, immortal, until the day someone figures out how to open the door. Then and only then will he share the knowledge and power of the tower with the world. While you all hate to lose your friend, you know that he's right. As the gates seal, Sid and the others vow to catch up to Alad quickly so you can all be reunited. But until then, many adventures await you, on this world and on others. This concludes the story of the Crystal Tower. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video.